Welcome, everybody. This is Wednesday's live head to toe healing live meeting. We are so happy that you're joining us today. My name is Coach Karen, and if you're unfamiliar with head to toe healing, it is a modality that Dr. Reese has connected dots to put together to help people overcome chronic conditions and get out of pain, become pain-free. It's designed to get your body in a position where it can heal itself given the right environment. And today on our call, I have three of our experts. I have Coach Sean, I have Coach Ryan, and I have Coach Gingy. Each one of them has a modality that they're going to share with us today: nutrition, mindfulness, and posture. Because these three modalities are the glue that helps your body change once you have things in place. So today we have an interesting topic that comes up a lot on our feeds that people are trying to reverse, and that is the topic of arthritis. It is unfortunately plaguing a lot of people, and there's over 100 different types of arthritis. The one thing that it has in common is its inflammation, and it's painful. So I'm going to start out with our posture expert, Coach Sean, and ask him how posture impacts people when they have arthritis.
So yeah, a lot of how you go about your day, um, most of it starts with the nutrition field, but as your bones start to get misaligned, it can cause uneven wear. And what most people usually go to is surgery because, if it's wearing apart, you just get new parts. And I've never seen a situation where even the people that work in the areas where people are getting rehabilitated or doing surgery, I've never seen that actually fix the issue. I know it's largely nutrition, but without the proper circulation to get to the joints, to get to the bone, you're not able to, you're not able to start rebuilding that area. And so, um, I would say yes, it starts with both nutrition, because if you can't get the nutrition into the area, you can't start rehabilitating or rebuilding that joint. Same said, like even if you get the nutrients there, but the joints are misaligned, you'll continue to have the same problem, uneven wear, and it'll cause all sorts of issues as far as perforations in your cartilage and bone spurs and such like that. And so, yeah, it's all about realigning first.
Thank you for that. Coach Ryan, can you give your perspective on nutrition and supporting the body to get out of arthritis?
Yeah, from the nutritional perspective, the root cause of any so-called autoimmune problem is almost always a gut dysfunction, a digestive problem. Because if your guts are messed up, especially if you have leaky or undigested, and when the body absorbs those, it responds to them like they're a pathogen. So it can cause an immune response, and the body can mistakenly or by overcompensating, damage its own tissues as well. But that's not all forms of arthritis, right? It's just the autoimmune forms. Regular arthritis is usually just nutrient deficiency. In fact, I had childhood arthritis, and it was very easy to fix. It was actually less than 1 week that it got fixed when I put in the proper nutrient ratios and quantities there. And I've seen it many times happen very fast as well. But remember that inflammation can come from all kinds of sources. Digestive is one, nutrient deficiencies is another. Then, of course, you've got environmental things like chemicals and EMF radiation, and all kinds of things can cause inflammation. But then again, that's why nutrients can bring it down, because many nutrients are themselves anti-inflammatory, and we need those nutrients to rebuild bones and joints as well.
Coach Gingy, can you comment on how the mind-body connection affects arthritis for people that are dealing with that?
Absolutely. I think Ryan actually kind of nailed it on the head there with talking about inflammation, because as he taught me, actually, anything that ends in itis is inflammation. And so when you're looking at the mind-body connection for inflammation, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of stagnance. And so what we'd want to do is try to alleviate and try to smooth out any emotional or mental stagnation or, you know, any type of stuckness and tension and inflammation mentally. So there could very easily be some thought patterns that are causing extra stress and extra tension in the body that we could quickly unwind and then let the nutrients that Ryan was just talking about take place and or not take place, but take effect. That would probably be where I would start with anybody doing, dealing with any level of inflammation is looking at where's the heat, where's the anger. And most of this is usually, I'll say the root cause of it is mostly in the inner child work that we do because you may not even know that your body is tense. You may not know that your thoughts are triggering emotions. You just may think that this is the way that it is. And by bringing a level of mindfulness in, you can actually be aware of what's going on for you and then start alleviating it piece by piece. We just had a really amazing testimony in the mindfulness class this morning talking about how she's like, I don't know why things are just moving. I feel emotion and I feel all this stuff. And she was in joy about it. And she had never experienced this level of openness or fluidity mentally and emotionally that she said it's probably she said it's probably a culmination of all three. She's like, I'm doing all the posture stuff, I'm doing all the nutrition stuff, and now this stuff is really the mindfulness stuff is really breaking it open. So it's important to address all three elements in the program.
Thank you for that. Are there specific foods that contribute to arthritic conditions? Coach Ryan, would you mind addressing that?
Well, a lot of people think so. They think, when I eat peppers or something like that, nightshades, oh, it gets worse. Well, what that's telling me is you're just not digesting it properly. So I would say no, other than the foods that damage digestion in the first place, especially gluten. For a lot of people, that could be dairy. Gluten and dairy are the top two most provocative foods for causing autoimmune problems. And we want people off all the bad foods anyways, because all four bad foods cause inflammation, right? And as we mentioned, arthritis is an inflammatory condition. So you want to stop eating inflammatory foods, of course, which is basically anything processed, anything overcooked or burned, processed meats with nitrates in them, all that stuff.
Thank you. We have somebody in the chat and gastroparesis. I don't know if I pronounced that right. They're having issues with those. Could I start with you, Ryan?
Yeah, so Lynn here has mentioned a few things in the comments. The gastroparesis automatically means you have a severe digestion problem. Her doctors want her on a statin drug because she's worried about her fatty liver disease getting worse. And how can I get proper nutrition with gastroparesis? These are all their questions before that. POTS is a postural thing. We'll let Sean talk about that. It could be structural as well. POTS is heart palpitations that happen when you're standing or when you're sitting. Like, it's only when you're in a certain posture that it happens. So that could be a posture problem. That could be corrected possibly with posture therapy like we do. Could be from an injury as well. And it could be just nutritional deterioration of the spinal column, which is pinching a nerve that goes to the heart. But clearly, she needs to fix her digestion. If she was in our care, then 100% certain we would put her on a gut rescue protocol for the first month, maybe first 2 or 3 months. Because if you don't fix your digestion, then you're probably not going to fix anything else. So she's asking, how do I get proper nutrition with gastroparesis? The answer is to fix the gastroparesis. It's 100% reversible.
Thank you. Let's pass it over to Coach Sean to address the issues about POTS.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just focusing on realigning the pelvis. And I think this is just a modern day condition. We're sitting more than ever. And due to that, we kind of get that sitting posture, I call it. So our spines are turning more into a C. And that takes away a lot of the flow, or it starts to impinge or compress certain nerves throughout the spine. and that gets in a way of a lot of just, I mean, one of the biggest nerves you can think of is the vagus nerve. And when these nerves are compressed, the communication between the brain and the rest of the body is hindered. That's one thing. Also, blood flow. You know, a lot of people who dealt with POTS can't, you know, stand up immediately or they'll get dizzy. And so there's obviously an obstruction somewhere along the way that's just not allowing the blood to flow effectively. And yes, same thing with the lymphatic system. When the blood is not able to flow, that means the lymph is going to have stagnation as well. And so we just have to realign the pelvis, and also with realigning the pelvis, we realign the spine. Because a lot of people don't realize, like, our pelvis shifts one way. If you have a hip hike, for example, your legs stay the same. Like, people were, you know, coming to the doctor and the doctor says your legs are like different sizes. Well, your leg stays the same unless there was some type of surgery you had, I don't know, where they like literally shortened your leg, like bone. Your bone is literally shorter than the other, but other than that, it's a discrepancy in the hips. And so if you have something in the hips going on, then it goes to the spine. The spine has to compensate, and it just creates this whole traffic jam. And so we have to clear out that traffic jam if we want to have effective blood flow. But also if we want to have proper nerve system um, uh, activity, we also have to ensure that the spine is aligned as well.
Coach Gingy, could you add on to, or do you have any suggestions with this topic?
I think is one of the biggest characteristics of POTS is specifically the elevation of the heart rate. I mean, how many times a day check your phone, or you remember that thing on your to-do list that you were not present to? You remember there's something, so you have thoughts coming in and through all the time, and I would almost guarantee thoughts are spiking your blood pressure. They're exciting you in some way. Try sitting there and going, I bet. So mindfulness absolutely will play a part in alleviating POTS. You want to do everything else and then still have your mind and your emotional hijack, your heart rate, still depleting nutrients.
What would be a for somebody, or as far as a food plan for somebody that's dealing with POTS? Do you have any suggestions on that, Ryan?
Well, in this particular case, we know she has a digestion problem in the way, so we would be putting all of our attention towards that at the beginning. And if there wasn't a digestion problem involved, then it would be the same protocol as for arthritis. We would use all 90 essential nutrients with some extra support for the joints, basically.
We have some other
You
questions.
need all those same nutrients for the nerves, by the way. Nerves, muscles, bones. It's not the exact same composition, but it's more or less the same recipe.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. We have some other questions. Amber's in our chat here, and she has a couple questions here. One, should we eat 2 tablespoons of kimchi with our meals every day? And then also, can you comment on, is it important to have 7 different colored fruits per day? Ryan?
You could eat 2 tablespoons of kimchi every day if you wanted to, but you have to keep in mind that if you make it yourself, it has probiotics in it, and that's great. If you buy it from a store, it probably doesn't. It's probably been pasteurized or heated, which makes it processed foods. Basically, it's junk, it's a waste of money. So if you're gonna have kimchi, make it yourself. Same goes for sauerkraut. You know, there's a lot of people buying these things in the store thinking that they're getting good probiotics or gut support when it's 100% not the case if it's pasteurized. And 7 fruits every day? No. I know she said in moderation, of course, but no, that's not necessary. Never was for any human population.
She was
It's
also
not bad.
mentioning,
Go ahead.
sorry about that. She was also mentioning she feels that it's important with people having stomach issues to be on a low lectin diet. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's Dr. Gundry's thing. I mean, there's other people promoting it, but uh, Gundry's kind of the most famous for doing so, talking about lectins. And I think he's on to something with the lectin thing, but I also think he's overplaying it, overblowing it. So, um, with her, I don't know what her actual problems are. I'm looking for them in the chat here. She said she removed gluten and she feels better. Well, that's great. But what problem is she trying to fix? I don't know. So the 7 different fruits thing, I don't have a huge opinion on it. I know there have been some people who do eat too much fruit. We've had this, especially with women who can't lose weight. And I'm like, well, what are you eating? Oh, I eat 2 bananas a day and, an apple and some blueberries later. And, so at that level, the lectin thing really might be true. It really might be preventing them from losing weight, which Gundry would agree with. But in general, we're talking about small servings. I guess I think you could do it without lectins being a concern. I just don't think it's necessary. I don't do that. We don't teach that. It's not it's not a strategy that's going to get you out of very many problems. And with her saying, I think people with stomach issues should have a low lectin diet. Well, we would fix the stomach issues. That would be the goal, is to fix the stomach issues. Someone with a sensitive stomach, they should be on a restricted diet. That's true. Temporarily, while the stomach and the entire digestive system is being retrained to work properly.
So with somebody with a stomach issue, would you please just review what foods are best to get off of so people can maybe start doing that on their own?
Yeah, the poor 4 foods are gluten, oil, fried, and fake. And we believe everybody should be off of those regardless, but especially if you have a stomach problem. And all of them are going to be important for the digestive system, but getting off of glutens is your number one. Wheat, barley, rye, and oats, all 4 of them, and any exotic grains that have gluten in them. And honestly, if you have stomach problems, you're going to be better just getting off of grains completely. That includes the gluten-free grains like quinoa and corn and all that stuff. Just get rid of them totally. And of course, the fake gluten, oil, fried, and fake foods can have any number of antagonistic things in them, from preservatives to MSG and so on. So a lot of that stuff can disrupt your gut, but disrupt your whole body. As mentioned before, it's inflammatory food anyways. So don't know how much inflammation is playing a role here, but first,
Hip is really painful. She needs surgery.
Directly say whether or not you should get surgery. But as I said before, all of the people, even the people, and we've dealt with people that have been like uh, chiropractic and postural or physical therapy assistants, and they see this stuff all the time. They see someone have surgery on their knee, or hip or whatever, and they're fine for the first couple of weeks, for the month, or something like that, and then it travels somewhere else, because a posture issue is a full body issue. It's not just, oh, I have pain on my knee, I need to fix my knee. Well, there's a reason why both knees didn't go out at the same time. So there's an imbalance somewhere, and you have to correct the dysfunction. That's all you're doing. And so, yeah, we could absolutely help that. We've saved a lot of people from having to go to surgery. Again, it's up to you, but if you work with us, we are able to help you with that issue. We just have to correct the dysfunctions that you have. And a lot of people don't have like any awareness of what they're doing throughout the day that could possibly be contributing to their actual issues, or it's what they're not doing as well. So there's a lot of things that in posture alignment therapy class, we are having people unlearn and then relearn. So, yeah, but I don't see a need for surgery at all. But, it's at the end of the day, it's up to you.
What's interesting about that is I was chatting with somebody, they had really extreme gut issues to a point where they were on immune suppressor drugs for a really long time. Surgeries, removing portions what happened was, since the gut was never repaired, the inflammation that was occurring in the digestive tract basically changed hosts. And then it became a full body arthritis. And they were continuing to have problems. What was amazing, though, is once they got off the poor four foods and regulated their body, supported their body in the right way, they were able to turn things around. But the system wasn't necessarily helping them do that. It was outside of the system. So there definitely are ways to turn things around. So if you are new to our channel and you're curious if this might be for you, go to drkevinreese.com to get some more information. There's a lot of educational videos on there. And we do have, Dr. Reese has several books out as well. There's one called Peace Over Pain. That's a great one to start with. There's also the Medical Monopoly book. It's the red book. Those are two fabulous books to start with if you're curious if what we do is for you. But back to our comments, Curtis is saying he's trying to overcome an accumulation of autoimmune diseases. So with this, is there any particular coach wants to lead on this one? Coach Sean, Ryan, Gingy?
I'll jump in here and talk a little bit to this because even listening to some of the questions that have been coming in before, I wanna shift the way people think about this a little bit because it's not, I'll say there are a lot of magic bullet ideas, there's a lot of quick fixes, and I think surgery is definitely and especially if you've been trying to work with different autoimmune issues in this way and in this way and in this way, it may be that you're too focused down on a single thing and saying, well, it's going to be this that fixes me. Nope. It's going to be this that fixes me. Nope. And this perpetual process is probably the reason why you're still in the same place. Because, what we offer here is a holistic program. You get at the issue from all angles. And if you're just looking at it nutritionally, if you're just sitting over here meditating, if you're working out and doing posture work all the time, you're going to be missing a piece of it somewhere. And getting your mind around it in a way that's holistic, thinking, okay, well, I need to get at it from multiple angles. What are the multiple angles? And if these guys are saying, well, there's three, start looking at it there. Is there anything I'm doing posturally that could contribute to the autoimmune stuff? Is there any mental patterns and mindfulness things I can do to get at the autoimmune stuff? Is there any nutritional stuff? And Ryan's like the guru over here on gut health and on nutritional stuff. And I know a ton of autoimmune stuff can come from just eating the poor four foods, from eating junk foods and, eating too fast, eating too slow, eating with carbonation. All of these things can impact gut health, causing inflammatory responses in the body. And if you're not present and aware to the foods you're taking in and how they impact your body, and if you're not present and aware to the speed that you're eating and all these things, well, then there's no real hope if you're just like, I know some people get on a nutritional program and they'll down all of their stuff in the first hour they've been awake, and the rest of the day they're not doing anything. That's like akin to taking all the drugs your doctor prescribes you all in one sitting and then sitting around hoping for magic to happen. So I think it's important to look at it from all sides and also be mindful of the root cause of what's going on for you. Because if you don't get to the root cause, you're just going to be dealing with symptoms all day, every day, which is what the medical monopoly was designed to do, is to manage symptoms.
Thank you for that. Coach Ryan, anything you can add to that?
Yeah, are we still talking about the surgery for the knee?
No, we're on overcoming accumulation of autoimmune diseases, trying to overcome those where there's multiple ones.
Well, this is why we get people in for a year in our membership, because it's going to take time, right? You already mentioned before with autoimmune, it's most likely started in the gut. So we're going to focus on the gut first and foremost. Look at all their symptoms, pinpoint where the most of the problems are in terms of categories, because we need to support categories. We don't have 1,000 different products for 1,000 different symptoms. Put all those symptoms into a few categories to see which one sticks out most and where we should focus most of our attention. And it'll probably take several months, right? If there's an obvious gut problem there, that will probably take a month or 2 or 3 to resolve, and then things should start feeling better one by one or gradually, and we adjust as needed. You're going to need all 90 essential nutrients. And once again, we'll also need to focus attention on wherever her symptoms are the most. And by the way, there's someone asking about Ehlers-Danlos a lot, EDS. We should get to her at one point. She's asked a few times.
Let's get to her next. Do you want to lead on that one?
Yeah, it's this genetic thing, or you're stuck with it. It's not true at all. Now, it might be true that she was born with it, but there's multiple nutrient deficiencies involved with EDS, any connective tissue problem. That's what it is. It's a connective tissue disorder. Most likely does start in the guts as well. But just because it happened when you're born with it doesn't mean it's genetic. You can be born with deficiencies. I was born with childhood arthritis and dislocated hips and a bunch of problems, right? If your mom's deficient, you're deficient. So it is reversible. She was also asking about POTS at the same time, which is also the same deficiency category. And we already touched on POTS as well. So, here in the Head to Toe Healing program, we do more than just nutrition. We do the mindfulness as well as the posture alignment therapy. And yeah, you're going to need a year. You're going to need at least several months, most likely, to see significant improvement. But what we would do when you first get in, we would take your symptom score basically on your analysis, and maybe you're 20 out of 60 right now, and we would expect to see that start coming down and down and down, less and less symptoms as time goes on, and the symptoms themselves being less severe. So EDS, just because they say it's genetic, doesn't mean you're stuck with it. It is reversible. It's going to take work. It's going to take a lot of nutrition as well, but it can be done.
Thank you. And she was also asking Coach Sean, how can it help with posture if she has hypermobility?
Well, that's the thing. With hypermobility, it's quite literally your joints are moving out of the range of what is supposed to be the range of your arm movement or your knee. You're extending your leg out and such. And so strengthening the muscle is the key to actually reversing the hypermobility issue. That's all it really is. If you're able to extend your arm past the point, past 180 degrees, then it's not much of a bone issue. It's going to be that the muscles are not strong enough and you're straining the muscles more when you do fall into that position. I mean, hypermobility in the knee is the most common, and it's just as simple as strengthening the muscles in that area. And I hate to say like it's a simple condition because I know you've been going through it for a long time, but it's just you've been misled, or the people that are essentially trying to help you look at it from one perspective, and that's it. And so that's why I love that we're doing this and we're all in communication with each other. So when you're sent to a specialist, and I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but when you're sent to a specialist, it's just that specialist. And then you got to go to another specialist, and they're not talking to each other. They're just prescribing medication. And then oftentimes you got to go back to the other specialist and make sure they're on the same page. And then you got to go back to your primary doctor. And so you're just running all over the place. I love the way Dr. Reese says symptom chasing, because instead of actually addressing the root cause, you're symptom chasing. But here, we're all in communication. If we have an issue, we'll just go directly to the coach. And we're all on the same page as far as knowing the 3 healing modalities. And so it's easier to help. But yes, it's just as simple as strengthening the muscles. But it's not just, go to the gym and work out. You have to work on the small muscles as well. And those don't take weights. The larger muscles take on the weights for you. It's those micro muscles that we need to start working. And that's where the true reversal starts to happen.
And one thing that's amazing about posture therapy too is motion is lotion for the body. And once you start training the muscles to move the bone, we can start having more balance and strength and function in the proper. That piece of the 3-legged stool, nutrition, posture, and mind. Amazing. A couple more questions here in the chat. Mark is asking, what is the cost of night terror?
Cause there.
Cause?
And
Oh, yeah, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, he's a member. So I responded to that. It's hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops at night, you can get all kinds of weird things happen in your sleep, not just night terrors, night talking, night walking, night screaming. Waking up at night to urinate is one, although that can happen with a general metabolic problem as well. Grinding your teeth at night is another one. Night sweating is another one as well. And during the day, interestingly but related, is narcolepsy, falling asleep randomly. It's a blood sugar problem, low blood sugar.
Interesting. I was just speaking with somebody this last week that was inquiring about our program, was having seizures upon waking. It was a young person. It was right before school. It was always happening on a Sunday to Monday. It's only happened a few times, but it's really frightening for them. What do you think would cause something like that?
Could be a blood pressure thing because blood pressure is highest in the morning. If it's only happening in the morning, that could be a clue. Obviously, I want to look at what else is going on with them because seizures in general can just be multiple different nutrient deficiencies. It can be magnesium, B vitamins, essential fatty acids. So I would look at what other symptoms they have, see if we can make sense and put it in a nutritional category. But and a blood pressure would be in a nutritional category, but I would be looking for other metabolic problems as well. Or obviously, if they have a consistent blood pressure problem, is the blood pressure high all the time? Is it normally low, but it spikes in the morning? I would look for some abnormality there. But it could also be something to do with the bedroom. A lot of times people ask, I have this symptom and it only happens in the morning when I wake up. It only happens at night. In that case, I would look at the bedroom. What's going on in the bedroom? Is there poor ventilation? Is there a lot of electronic devices in there? Are they getting a good sleep? What is their sleep overall like? I would look for something in the bedroom. Even as crazy as it sounds, it's possible that they're using a strong detergent with the pillows and stuff like that, right? It's right up in your face. You're absorbing it, you're breathing it in. We've had many cases where people will wake up coughing or something like that, but they're like, well, it doesn't happen any other time. It doesn't happen when I'm at work. It doesn't happen when I'm driving. It doesn't happen when I'm watching TV. Well, it only happens in the bedroom. Look at the bedroom, particularly at electronic devices being in the bedroom. None of them should be in there. And chemical use. Do they have a Glade plug-in air freshener or something in there all the time? Again, this is not going to affect everyone when it comes to seizures. EMF and chemicals can be a trigger for sure, and low ventilation as well. And obviously, if they have any other problems, then we could put it more securely in the nutritional.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Coach Gingy, did you have any?
The inner child work that we do would be very important during anything around sleep, because I was explaining some memory. Your child becomes more dominant, and when you wake up, your conscious mind becomes more dominant, and it's kind of this back and forth dynamic. And if there is any unprocessed thoughts or traumatic events or struggles or anything your mind has been focusing on all day, or for a good chunk of the day, or anything that had a high emotional impact during the day, then those things get processed with the subconscious mind. And so sometimes people, if they're doing everything else right, they still may wake up in the middle of the night being terrified, or waking up in night sweats, or just sleeping like 30 minutes at a time, because their mind is still trying to digest and resolve something. And so the inner child work that Dr. Reese put together, I would say if you woke up in the middle of the night and had that going on, that would be probably the best thing for you to do in that moment. It calms you down and it kind of regulates and allows you to process actually the things that are coming up for you. As well as just being aware of what it is. If one day you wake up and you're just thinking about that car accident you were in 2 years ago, and then that's the only time it ever happens, maybe not a big deal. You don't have to grab one thing and then hyper focus on it and try to resolve it when it doesn't need resolving. But if it's something that shows up today and a couple days from now and 4 times next week, well, then that's something that's kind of orbiting your experience that you need to deal with at some point, because it won't go away unless it gets processed. So usually what happens is something will kind of orbit and people say, I don't want to think about it. And they suppress it. And then they move on to the next thing in life. They get another one. And then they become so bogged down with all of these things circling around that they end up kind of overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know why I have this thing. It's just happening all the time. And once you start dialing in, it's like you're peeling back layers of an onion. Like, well, here's the first thing. Okay, let's process that one. Okay, here's the next thing. Okay, we'll process that one. And eventually you're like, wow, I never felt this free because you've alleviated this weight. You've processed these things that you've just had on the back burner for probably decades for most people. And so that I can't stress how important, the inner child work that Dr. Reese has put together is for people, especially when it comes to going to sleep and waking up and waking up and in and out through the rest of the night. Now, if you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're like, nothing's going on, I just can't sleep, that's a Ryan issue. Have Ryan give you something for a nutritional thing because it's not necessarily psychological. But what you will probably find if you ever join the program is that it's a mixture of both. You'll probably have to do a little nutrition stuff and a little inner child work and a little postural work until the whole thing unwinds. If not, it's almost like you're doing all this extra work over here, but you're still kind of having some lingering effects. And that's when you're like, oh, I got to get to the other stuff too. I can't do everything through one avenue. So I thought that was important to say.
With what you shared there, what made sense to me is the particular individual that we were discussing, 14-year-old that's in either middle school or high school, always happened on a Sunday morning going into Monday during the school year. So it could have been potentially anxiety about going to school on that Monday as well.
Absolutely. Or anything. They say that heart attack rates increase by a significant percentage on Monday mornings. Like, I wonder what's so special about Monday morning. Well, you just transitioned from all this time off and all this fun and, passionate activities of whatever kind, and then you're going back to a job that you probably don't like, and you're just suppressing your emotions around that. And it's also why they tend to fire people on Fridays. It's easier for them to process having the weekend off because they were already expecting to have the weekend off. And then, Monday's when things gonna hit the fan, if you will. So yeah, these are the types of patterns you'd want to be aware of. Like, do you have poor sleep only on Sundays? And why is that? Do you have poor sleep just during the weekday? Why is that? Do you have poor sleep, the week following an argument with somebody? Why is that? So being mindful of those things is absolutely important because in that situation, Karen, it's more than likely a mindfulness issue.
Absolutely. We have another question here. Carmen is asking, what about cirrhosis of the liver? How to heal? And it's not from alcohol. Brian, could you start on this one?
Yeah, well, it's often not from alcohol. It's nutrient deficiency. It's multiple nutrient deficiency. And for those wondering what alcohol has to do with it, alcohol just depletes those nutrients faster. So it's just you're gonna get it faster if you drink more. But you don't have to drink to be deficient in those nutrients in the first place and to also exacerbate their depletion, especially by eating the poor four foods, because when you eat those bad foods, anything inflammatory, once again, especially the fake foods, but also the glutens and the oils and the fried food, your body has to deploy more of those nutrients to clean it up. So the more inflammatory stuff we eat, the more of our anti-inflammatory nutrients we lose. And it just so happens that many of those nutrients are also key to liver health. And that's it. It's a simple nutrient deficiency. It is reversible. If they have no other problems, which is unlikely, then it should be pretty simple. But most likely they do have other problems in the metabolic category, maybe overweight, maybe a blood pressure problem or high cholesterol or high blood sugar. Those would all make a lot of sense with a fatty liver or liver cirrhosis.
Coach Gingy, do you have any comments on this particular topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a personal story. That's okay. My mom has recently recovered from stage 4 liver cirrhosis. And all of the medical doctors she was talking to, they all said, nothing we can do. Take these drugs to feel a little bit more comfortable. And maybe if we put you on a transplant list, we can we can do a surgery to replace your liver. And it took many years for us to figure out. It's actually part of why I'm even here with everybody today, is because of the journey my mom went through. And it started with the doctors all striking out, saying there's nothing we can do. Cirrhosis of the liver is a permanent thing. You can't undo scar tissue. And with my experience, I'm like, Mom, all they offered you was, we don't have a solution. So let's go find somebody that does have a solution. And it was many, many weeks or months until we found one guy that said he could help. And he did. He stopped all the blackouts, and because I forget what they had a thing for it, a name for it and an explanation for it, but basically she was just blacking out of nowhere. It's like she was just unconscious drunk all of a sudden. And it just, like, you could tell she was getting kind of sleepy, and then started slurring her words, and then she was just gone. And so what he offered, which it's proprietary and nobody could know, so it's just some secret sauce, and that stopped her from having blackouts, but she still had all the other symptoms. She still had tumor markers up near 400 something. She still had, the works. And so then, I came across Ryan and some other people, and they helped me dial in her nutrition, and that improved her quite a bit. I think we got her tumor markers down to around 100 or something like that, and continued working. And she'd get very distraught every time she went back to her doctor, and the doctor was like, there's no improvement. Well, except for your tumor markers are a little bit lower, but that's to be expected. They'll go back up. They have this whole, they're locked into this idea, basically. And they've been trained to, right? All of their literature and all of their education has funneled them into seeing things in a certain way. In fact, when things go outside of that purview, they call it spontaneous remission, or an act of God or something, because they don't understand it. They even have terminology for things they don't know what caused it. They call it it's a genetic thing, but we don't know how the genetics work. Or they say it's idiopathic, which means we don't know the cause. So they've literally written in there, we don't know. And so after a while, we found that her sleep was an issue. She had no idea that she wasn't getting good sleep. She felt like she was all the time. And once we dialed in the sleep, and once we dialed in the mindfulness and emotional regulation, and got her out of some tricky situations, she's effectively a brand new person. It looks like she reversed her age 20 years, and her scar tissue's been reversing for 2 years now, and she doesn't have blackouts, and her tumor markers are down near 12 or something like that. And she's running around the world telling everybody how miraculous this turnaround has been. And like, none of it could have actually happened had it not been for all the stuff that we did, especially the sleep and the emotional stuff, and absolutely the nutrition stuff. I wish I had access to Coach Sean. I would have had her on posture stuff too. But I wanted to share that because, this is one of those things that I've literally seen people walk back from the brink of death on. And it just goes to prove, at least to me, that no condition is irreversible. I mean, I would even say that some of the genetic stuff or the deficiencies you're born with, at least there's a potential, there's a possibility for those to get straightened out some way with the mindfulness or spiritual stuff, or I don't know. Because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm holding space for that to be a possibility.
Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. So happy that your mom experienced that transformation.
Yes.
Christina's in the comments here. She said, doctor diagnosed me with ankylosing spondylitis disease. I stopped infusions that they put me on. I don't think it's working. I have pains and inflammation in my feet, toes, and fingers. What can I take? Christine, with that, the individual that I was sharing about earlier that I know, they had Crohn's disease, and then it transferred to AS throughout their entire body. Once they got off the problematic foods, gluten, oil, fried, fake, they also eliminated dairy. Inflammation went away, and they started getting on the right nutrition. It just made everything work, and they're not seeing the doctor on a regular basis anymore. So there definitely is opportunity for that. Coach Ryan, do you have any more insights on that particular comment?
With Crohn's transferring somewhere else in the digestive
Yeah,
tract?
so basically the individual that I know, they had Crohn's, and then once they cut portions of the colon out, the inflammation transferred to other parts of the body to AS. So basically they just had full body arthritis. And the root problem was never addressed. But once it was addressed, it was able to be reversed.
Well, yeah, it's not surprising. If you just cut part of the intestine out, then if you continue eating things that are screwing up one part of the intestine, it's going to happen somewhere else as well. It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. Mimi's asking here, this would be a Ryan question most likely. What are your thoughts on a breakfast smoothie with almond butter, cashew milk, bananas, dates, and no added sugar?
Not too bad. I would like to see a bit more protein in it, like eggs. Almond butter and yeah, it's got some protein in it, but it's not like I'm recommending a high protein diet, but for breakfast should be a bit more balanced. There's a good amount of fat and carbs here, but not that much protein. I would add some eggs to it.
Is it along with that line, is it important to have a balance of protein and carbs with each meal?
I like having protein, carbs, and fat with each meal.
Thank you. Yvonne's asking, what about Lou Gehrig's disease?
Oh, ALS.
Yep. And
ALS is same with MS. It would be the same basic answer. There's going to be tons of nutrient deficiencies involved. I know some people listening might get annoyed by that. Well, why don't you just tell us which nutrients it is? Because there's at least 90 essential nutrients. They all work together. I'm not going to list them all when it comes to every problem. If you have a chronic disease, you should assume you have multiple nutrient deficiencies. If you have something serious like ALS or MS, you should assume even more deficiencies. Probably tons of them, and many of them are probably severe critical deficiencies. There's other theories about ALS too, including the same old, digestive autoimmune component as we see with MS and so many others. But also EMF, big one is EMF. And it's especially interesting that ALS is pretty prevalent among athletes, more than you would expect. And there are some people who believe that's because of the TENS machines that a lot of athletes tend to use for muscle recovery, that it's putting frequencies right into them. And that could be one of the reasons that they develop ALS in the first place. But nonetheless, no matter what contributing causes there is, and there's probably many, including EMF and chemicals and maybe a metabolic problem as well, no matter what the root cause is, there's always going to be nutrient deficiencies involved. And in something like ALS, I would always assume there's more than one root cause involved.
thank you for that. What about back to the topic of low heart rate? Yvonne's asking, what causes a low heart rate?
People are going to be annoyed again. It's multiple nutrient deficiencies. You need lots of nutrients for your muscle system, and your blood is pumped around using muscles, not your big, huge muscles in your arm, the little muscles at the end of each vein that pump it forward. And the heart, obviously, lacking in some nutrients. I would assume you have hypothyroidism as well.
What would be your opinion on using an air fryer? Is that okay?
I hate them.
Why
I
do you
think
hate them?
I think they're stupid and they have no reason to exist. They're basically a convection oven, so you could just use an oven. I'm a fan of the oven. You can put it on convection mode. Even toaster ovens, a lot of them have that mode as well. It's just we're sold something that just doesn't fix the problem. The problem is made up. It's a fake problem. Now, most people use air fryers with a bit of oil in it too, which is not suggested. I mean, it is by the manufacturer, but not by us, so that's bad. But anytime you're cooking things rapidly or at high heat or both, you should be concerned because all food changes chemically when you heat it. And the more heat, the truer that is. And the faster the heating, the truer that is. So these things that are marketed for convenience purposes end up creating a lot of additional problems in the food. You don't want to be a food chemist in order to understand all this stuff. So what you should just understand is you should be cooking as much as possible at lower temperatures for longer periods of time. Be patient, plan ahead. Don't take these scam convenience machines. Don't use them because it's going to mess up your food more than it needs to.
From the machines that I've seen, the air fryers, they also tend to have Teflon on the inside of them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a chemical overcooking machine. Cooks your food too fast, too hot, and it's got too many chemicals in it.
So we have somebody else in the comment, prostate alternative for my dad instead of chemo. Any thoughts on that?
We're still on me.
Yes, we are.
You included the words "for my dad," which means he's the one that needs information here. He's the one that needs to be committed. You can't be committed to his protocol. You can't buy everything for him and force him to take it all and take it all seriously. Cancer is very serious. It requires the person themselves, not their kid, not their sister, not their wife. They have to take this seriously. And if they were talking to me, I would give them quite a long list of nutritional options and work with their budget and to see what is most important in their cases. But there's also a long list of other things that you can and should consider if you have any form of cancer. These are not things that we do for you. These are just options that are available, which I would help them figure out once again based on their budget, their level of commitment, their ability to do these things. When it comes to prostate cancer, I consider it one of the easiest cancers to deal with. So I'm not panicking nutritionally. I'm still going to give a bigger protocol than the average person, like all these other problems we're talking about. We have lots of time with them, right? I know they want to get their arthritis fixed as soon as possible or whatever it is, but we have time nonetheless, so we can take our normal pace. When it comes to any cancer, we want to go harder than that. We want to go harder and faster. So this is going to require commitment from your dad. So me listing off a bunch of nutrients, which I'm not going to do, but if I were to list off a bunch of nutrients, it wouldn't be that helpful because he's the one that needs to be committed for it. So I would show him this. If you can, show him some of our other content. Let him know, these people are claiming to be able to help you. And prostate requires many different nutrients. We have a lot of success with prostate in the past, by the way. And to my knowledge, every person I personally have ever dealt with, every man with prostate cancer is still alive today. And some of those were 10 years ago or more. They're still alive today. So like I said, I do consider it one of the easiest ones, but it does require commitment. It's going to require some costs too. Like I said, the protocol is going to be heavier than normal. Not extravagantly expensive, but you absolutely cannot do it for him or for anyone. They have to make this decision themselves and they have to commit to it themselves.
Thank you for that. This one, an individual's commenting, I have thumb and can't do surgery because lack of lymph nodes. To me, I still suffer from pain. Please help. So it sounds like it's coming from posture.
Yeah, but still, it has some influence from a nutritional perspective. But uh, I would always say that very rarely is the site of the pain ever the source. And so oftentimes it's always upstream that you need to go to find the actual source. And a lot of people, you can look around. If you like go to a mall or go people watching, you'll see that everybody to a degree has some sort of forward head or rounded shoulders. The shoulders are rounded forward, they're hunched over a little bit and they're walking. It's very easy to see. And if you want to test it on yourself, go against the wall and don't force anything. Just go against the wall. Do your shoulders touch? Without forcing it, does your head touch? Most of the people will say no. And this is what we see in all of the analyses that we get. And it's just a problem of this generation. And so the arthritis is probably not just a hand issue. It's most likely going to be somewhere in the pelvis. And you're like, how is the pelvis connected to the hand? Well, it's all balanced on the pelvis. The pelvis is like, it's the girdle of life, essentially, for a posture from the musculoskeletal perspective. And when that gets off kilter, it affects the spine, which affects the shoulders, which affects the elbow, which affects the wrist and all the fingers. And so we have to realign back to neutral. That's what we're trying to do all the time in posture alignment therapy. We're just trying to get you back to neutral and moving functionally to where you're not harming yourself. And so that's where it will come from. And I saw her comment. She said that she had, I don't see it anymore, but it was like something to do with the lymph node removed or something like that. That could be even more of a telling issue, that if you have stagnant lymph, then that's what causes those cysts. That's what causes those polyps. That's what causes any type of buildup anywhere in the body. And so if that doesn't go corrected, it becomes a larger issue. So I would start off, reach out to us if you need to. But like, there's only so much I could say. Like, for issues like that, especially like arthritis issues, it's just quite literally, we just need to get you in and get you going on all of the methods that we have for you. There's nothing that we can tell you beyond that, because it's not just a little thing. I can't sit here and give you hand exercises because I don't even know if it's coming from the hand. We have to see your body first in order to help you fix what needs to be fixed. And so it's it's a lot more than what meets the eye. Even chiropractic, it's like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. If the muscles bully the bones, why are you moving the bones hoping that the muscles just follow suit? They're the ones that are pushing everything around. And so if you don't correct that, the issue will start getting worse and worse, and the muscles will pull those bones together and grind them, and your bones will try whatever they can. Your body will try to make spurs and calcification to try to get extra cushion. It's not really cushion, it's just bone to bone, but to get extra cushion to save itself. And that's when all of a sudden you can't move your hand now, because it's so calcified from your body trying to save itself that it's locked up. Same thing happens to the spine when the vertebrae fuse together. Your body's trying to protect itself, but it ends up just walking itself into a ditch or walking itself into a wall, essentially. So we can definitely help this. We can definitely help this.
Thank you so much for that.
Well, real quick, I just saw somebody ask Sean if trigger finger was also caused by the pelvis. You want to touch on that, Sean?
Yeah. So okay. I'd say like a lot of issues are caused like by the pelvis, but it's like a domino effect. We would need to see exactly, like, need to look over, and I believe this is a member. Is that Kimberly? I think that's
Yes, it is.
yeah. So we can look over your photos and kind of get a better look. Most of the time it's going to come from the shoulders, and it depends on how the shoulders are being affected by the pelvis. But most issues that come from the hand are usually coming from the shoulders. And that's an easy tell, go against the wall, see if your shoulders touch. That just shows you your alignment, and it's not in a great position. So if they're forward, try to lift your arm up. Try to pull your shoulders forward and lift your arm up all the way. You can't, or you'll look weird doing it. So if they're locked into a position where you can't get full range of motion, that's when a lot of issues start to manifest, essentially. So trigger finger, yeah, same exact thing. That's something that we can definitely help with, but it's going to take a lot. Again, we just have to look back at the posture and see what you're doing right and what we need to work on moving forward.
Thank you for that. One last question here, and then we'll wrap up soon. Tinnitus, what can help with tinnitus? Would you like to start with that, Coach Sean?
Yeah, I'll start. So with tinnitus, we call that above the shoulder symptoms. And it coincides like exactly what I was saying earlier, with everybody has rounded shoulders and a forward head. And as you know, if you look at the body, if you go and look at the body's nervous system or cardiovascular system, you'll see that everything converges into the spine and goes up to the brain. So if that is impinged in any way, if those hose are, there's a kink in that hose, and essentially your head is forward, so it just loses all or some of its flow upward or some of its flow downward, lymph. I'm talking about the lymph there. Then you can see how nutrients aren't able to get up to the head. Oxygen is not able to get up to the head. Nerves are being compressed, and lymphatic drainage or spinal fluid is not able to drain back down. And so you're stuck. It's essentially too much bad is staying in and not enough good is getting up. So posture perspective, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Ryan or Gingy, do you have any extra information on that?
I do. Those nerves can be pinched from osteoporosis of the skull, which is nutrient deficiency. It can be caused tinnitus, ringing in the ears, can be caused by dehydration. We tend to see this a lot in the summer. People say, "I'm feeling ringing in my ears," or feeling nauseated. This never happened before. It's usually just dehydration in those cases. Also, since Bluetooth headphones began to be popular, we started seeing a whole bunch of people come in with tinnitus because of Bluetooth headphones. We simply said, "Stop using them," and it went away. So it can be caused by EMF. It can be caused by a posture problem, as Sean said. It can be caused by osteoporosis of the skull, which takes the longest to reverse out of any of these, but it is possible to reverse it. And dehydration. Dehydration is also easy to fix too. Just remember, final note on that, it's dehydration doesn't mean that you just don't have enough water. It could be that, but it could also mean that you don't have enough salt or B vitamins or calcium, magnesium, potassium, any of the water-soluble nutrients. You need all those and water to be properly hydrated. And if you're just drinking water all day because it's hot and it's summer out, you're actually depleting more of your electrolytes, and you can get dizzy, nauseated, or ringing in the ears as a sign of dehydration, even if you drank 2 gallons of water that day. You need both water and water-soluble nutrients to be properly hydrated.
Thank you for that.
Yep. And I would say that, like Ryan was saying, there's a lot of practices, a lot of habits that people are doing that can cause ringing in the ears, because that's what tinnitus is. So I would be present and aware to if it's sometime or all the time. And you may find that after you get off an airplane, your ears are ringing, or after you go on a jog and you've got headphones on, your ears are ringing. But if it's first thing in the morning and you wake up and you hear some ringing, or if that doesn't happen unless the fan's running all night and you wake up and there's some ringing, you'll notice that, the quieter you let it get, you will hear ringing after certain things. It could also be stuff that you did at a younger age. The first, I don't know how many decades of my life, I was a professional musician, and I was touring all over the place and playing in bigger bands and stuff. And you better bet, like, if I even wore earplugs in the venue while we were playing, I'd come out the next day and, have my earplugs out, and I would hear a little bit of ringing, even though I had earplugs in. People are going to concerts and stuff all the time with massive speakers and deep, low subwoofer notes, and, all of the people around, and their ears they're getting affected. So you just want to make sure that that's not something where you have an eardrum tear or an eardrum injury. And you also want to make sure that it's not something that's nutritional or postural. And if it's just your habits, then that can be very easily reversed without even doing anything different except for stopping the activities that created it. I think that was important. There's a few books where Dr. Reese talks about that too. I know somebody was asking where they can get the books. Maybe Karen, you could take us away and talk about where to get the books and which books do you recommend for tinnitus and arthritis and all the itises.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And we're going to wrap up for the day. So if this topic has sparked your interest, or friends, family members, or yourself, you're trying to get out of chronic pain or chronic conditions, get a hold of Peace Over Pain, this book, or the red book right here. medical monopoly, or reverse the cause. Reverse the cause has several chapters, actually many chapters in it. Coach Sean is holding it up. Do you want to talk for a second so it goes on, the camera goes on you, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Reverse the Cause is another book you can get, and that talks about more specific conditions. Those are a great place to start. If you're interested in getting more information about what we do, we also have educational materials on drkevinreese.com. There's many of our testimonials on that page too of members that have been in our program and reverse chronic conditions. You can get an idea what we're all about and if we're for you, and go from there. Otherwise, we will see you next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday